Hey, this is Joe, and in this video we're going to be mounting the throttle bodies back to the intake manifold, and then we're going to be wiring up the primary and secondary injector wires. If you look at your throttle bodies, this is an L1. The K model is a bit different. Your primary injectors are these sort of brownish color injectors, and they're on the bottom here. Your secondary injectors are gray in color, and they're on the top. Now, the best way to determine, according to the manual, it does say that there are numbers on here, but starting at the left position is number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. And if you look on the wiring diagram, you'll be able to tell which injector wiring connector goes to which throttle body position. Again, we're starting at number 1 on the left, going to number 4 on the right. Secondary injectors are on the top. Primary injectors are on the bottom. We've cleaned up all the mating surfaces here on the bottom. I've taken a rag with some cleaner, and there was some crud on these fittings here. These slide down into the rubber boots on the intake manifold, and then there's a series of clamps, one coming in from the right and one coming in on the left. There's 2 clamps on the left and 2 clamps on the right, and there's an Allen head screw on the right and left. So first of all, we're going to seat the throttle bodies into those rubber boots, push them down, then we can tighten up the clamps that hold the rubber boots from the throttle bodies to the intake manifold. So let's go over to the bike and we'll get these mounted on, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to route the injector wiring to the throttle bodies. Here we have the intake manifold with the 4 rubber boots. Again, you have the clamp adjusters, 2 on 1 and 2 and 2 on 3 and 4. Make sure that these are really loose, because you're going to have to slide the throttle body piece down into these rubber boots, and you want to make sure they're loose enough so they aren't going to pinch on you. And then we can tighten up, and I'll show you from the side view how you're going to tighten those up. Now, your wiring harness we have temporarily sitting right here. Once we get everything mounted with all of the injectors, then we'll tuck this down inside and probably zip tie this on. Now, if you look, you notice at least on the L model, the K, it's a little bit different according to the Haynes manual. The connectors with the blue sleeve are for the secondary, according to the manual, and the ones without the blue sleeve are your primary injectors. So let's move this out of the way. Let's go ahead and get a rag, and I'm going to wipe the dust off these rubber boots. I've had paper towels in there to keep everything out of the intake manifold. So we'll wipe that down, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to slip the throttle bodies on and push them down inside of the rubber boots. I'm using a detail spray because it's a little slippery, and not only will it get the dirt up, but hopefully provide a little bit better of a surface for those throttle body connectors to slide right into these boots. So again, we'll get all the dust out of there. Take a look inside your intake manifold. Make sure there's nothing inside. Again, I had 2 sets of paper towels in there the whole time the throttle bodies were off. I don't want any dirt, dust, spiders, or whatever crawling in there. So let's go ahead and get the throttle bodies and mount them onto the intake manifold. Before we mount the throttle bodies, we want to mount the exhaust control valve unit to the frame, because once we get the throttle bodies on there, we're not going to have enough room. So I've already went ahead and started the bolts. And it looks like there's a little rubber grommet, so this can flex a little bit. as it moves the control valve. So we're okay there. Let's get the cabling out of the way. Let's get the throttle cables out of the way, all the connectors out of the way. Now we can try to seat the throttle bodies onto the intake manifold. What you want to do is the upper harness, you want to lift it up because the throttle position sensor is right here, and you want to make sure that harness sits on top. If it's down below, you're not going to be able to get the throttle bodies down. If you notice, here's the connector from the throttle position sensor, and here is, this looks like a 13 or 14 pin connector. These two connectors go together right there. So what you want to do is line up the throttle body pieces exactly on top of the rubber boots, and you can, let me get around, you can look behind here and gently rock the throttle bodies back and look and tell when you have all of the throttle bodies into the rubber boots. And then what you want to do is push down, and then you'll hear it drop in and you'll hear it seat. And then you can look inside and you should be able to see all of the throttle bodies seated into the rubber boots. And then when you jiggle it, it doesn't jiggle, so it's not too terribly bad. Then what you can do is this connector right here, you can put it in and lock it, and you'll notice there's a release pin right here. So you want to put that off to the side. And then what we can do is we can start aligning the injector connectors off to the side. There's another plug here that comes off the throttle bodies. We'll have to locate this connector right here. You want to make sure all of your wiring harness connectors are up so you can access them. This appears to go to the airbox. We'll locate where this goes here in a minute. But now we have the throttle bodies on. Now what you want to do is refer to the wiring diagram, and you want to look at the wire connectors here, and you want to look, one is looks like a yellow and a red, and the other one looks like it's a green and a black. So you want to get yourself, either print out the diagram, and that way you can bring it out here, and then you can match up. Again, we start counting from the left hand side. So we're now going to hitch up the secondary injectors and the primary injectors to the wiring harness. I did some checking in the manual. It's indicating that the harness should be underneath, but I've tried to route it underneath, and it's just making it difficult to mount the throttle bodies into the intake manifold. So for the time being, I'm going to leave it on the top. I've test fitted the airbox, and the airbox seems to fit okay. So for the time being, we're just going to leave it here. So if you notice, the primary and secondary injectors work its way across this way, and by checking the wires, again, the blue is the secondary, and it's saying that that color is a bluish green, so that's going to go there. Then if you pull this one, it's showing that it's a gray and white. So that is the number 4 position. So what we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to push that connector, and you can hear it click. Then I'm going to come up with the secondary injector, and we're going to click that on like that. Then we're going to work our way across. A third cylinder is showing a yellow for the primary injector. So that clicks on. Then it's showing a secondary injector of blue, and we're going to click that on, and we're just going to work our way across. The number 2 cylinder, it's showing the primary injector as black, and it looks like there's a gray and black, so we're going to click that on, and again you can hear them snap. And then this one is showing for the secondary injector on number 2 is showing a white, and it's showing a green and white. So snap that on like that. And then we have the last 2. So it looks like they've put the harness on across from going from right to left from the main harness. So let's look at the primary injector on number 1 is a white, and it looks like it's a white. So we're going to snap that on here. And the interesting thing is on the cap there's a little snap in, and that is pointing upside down on the primaries and right side up on the secondary. So you have to sort of reverse them. There we go, and you can make sure they snap into place. And then the top one on the secondary on number 1 is a light green, and it does look like a light green, so there, that's snapped in. And then we have this extra connector here, which we're going to have to isolate and find out what it is. This is your gas tank sending unit right there, so that is not connected yet. This is an airbox hose right here, and this is an airbox hose right there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get the coil wires hitched up properly next.